Okay. All right, guys, let's go in here. There we go. Okay, so today's session, we are talking about finding and winning with buyers. Okay, so basically, as we know, when we're newer in the industry, right, we usually start working with buyers right from the beginning. Usually it's because a lot of us are working with our database or our sphere, people that we know who are comfortable approaching, letting them know that maybe our careers have changed. And so as a result, we're wanting to work with them to see if they have any referrals. Basically, to start, I want to introduce myself to those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting with. So my name's Steph Suave. I've been with our brokerage right from the beginning, right from when I first got my license. So I never interviewed very many brokerages. I really wanted a program like the one you're taking right now, like Ignite, because I knew that in order to be competitive in this industry where there's so many other agents, the one thing we need is knowledge, right? And so I found that Ignite really helped with kickstarting my business and giving me the confidence that I needed to start, right? So I think working with buyers has definitely taught me a lot, although in this market that we're in, as we know, it's very challenging to work with buyers right now, but it's going to teach you a lot. Like there's one way to work with a seller lead, right? But I find it very rewarding to be able to work with a buyer because you're seeing it from beginning to end, right? A lot of these people that you're going to work with, most of them are going to be first-time buyers, and you're going to be able to be that first person to help them purchase their first house. Some buyers that you work with might have a house to sell. Some buyers you're working with potentially are looking to purchase an investment property to pass down to their family to create generational wealth. So I find that working with buyers specifically is very rewarding. And so I found that the beginning of my career, and even still to this day, is spent with working a lot of buyers, just naturally through the way that I've built my business based on database and referral. Okay, so today we're going to focus on how to cultivate your leads into buyer opportunities. So what we're focusing on today, guys, is basically lead generating for buyers specifically, right? So there's obviously, a secret to being a successful agent, and that is that there's no secret. Success leaves clues, so we know exactly what successful agents need to do every day to run their business. So there's two things that agents do every day. They're either growing their business or they're trying to run their business, right? So we need to model what successful agents do. And these are the skills that we're going to be focusing on, okay? So the first step to working with buyers is finding the buyer to work with. And I think that your database is going to be a huge influence on you building the business that you need to work with buyers, right? So asking our own a sphere of influence or people that we know if they know anybody that we can help. So the first step to this path, as you see in front of us here, this is basically what we're going to work on for the remainder of the day. So you'll see that we're going to be talking about one, how do we find a buyer? The second thing is cultivating buyer leads, qualifying them, signing a buyer's representation agreement. And at the end, we're basically just recapping, and I'll share some experiences with you. I'll get you guys to share experiences with me too, and anything that was unclear or things that you have questions on. So this part here, before we even begin to learn how to handle leads that we know may want to buy real estate, we need to find our buyers, right? So basically, this is going to change for those of you who are solo agents and for those of you who are on a team. So basically, how a solo agent will find their lead versus a team are going to be two different things, right? A solo agent might be looking at connecting with people in their community. You might be asking for past family and friends if they have business that they can help. Somebody on a team might be maybe working with internet leads, right? So how you approach finding the buyer is going to be different depending on what your business model looks like. So the 2019 NAR profile of home buyers and sellers states that 89% of buyers purchased their home through a real estate agent, which is great news for us, right? 41% of buyers found their agents through a referral from family or friends. 75% of buyers interviewed only one real estate agent, right? So that shows us that converting buyers is usually easier than trying to convert a seller lead. And then 51% of buyers visited an open house as a way to search for homes, which is great once we are allowed to have open houses again. And in my own past experience, I found that open houses was just my niche and the way that I decided to lead generate. So I hope that we get to a point where we can have some sort of an open house again, especially for you guys to be able to experience, because I think that there's a huge niche market there for people that walk through open houses unrepresented and who need some sort of a real estate agent to support them. So basically, now that we know these stats, we have to ask ourselves, where do we want to find our buyers from? Right? We need to ask ourselves that question so that we can get clear on where we're looking. If you're looking in 5 or 10 different places, it's going to be very confusing for you. Do I get a lead from an open house, or do I call a friend, or do I ask a family? Do I go in the community? Like, I would say when you're looking to get clear on the buyers that you want to represent, I would start by writing down, who is your ideal client? Who is your ideal buyer? What do you have that you can support? What type of value proposition are you going to give them? Right? For me, I've been investing in real estate for 9 years. So maybe for me, I would look for investors, right? Maybe for somebody else, they're a first-time buyer themselves. So maybe they're marketing to first-time buyers. Like, what does your ideal buyer look like? And then work it backwards to see, so where am I going to find this ideal client of mine? What do you guys think of that? Just like, we'll leave this up to discussion, guys. This is an open space. I want you guys to really, engage with this topic and ask questions along the way. Maybe in the chat, guys, or you can, if you want to raise your hand in the chat, I can call on you just to let me know, what did you guys write down when you were trying to find your ideal buyer client? And where can we look for them? Let me see.
Steph, I was going to say, add something. I think what I've often thought of over the last year is if I work with buyers that I can relate to, like you just mentioned,
yes.
right? If I'm already a homeowner, maybe I'm
right.
going to now look for an investment property. It's easier for me to do that when I'm interested genuinely in it. So I'm learning for myself, but also educating others.
Of
so
course.
I find that part easier to, if I'm relating to the buyer on the same level.
I would totally agree with that for sure. And I think that kind of goes back on the first thing that we talked about, where maybe, one person's way is not the same as your way. It doesn't really matter who you're going to be attracting. It's, are we all following the same road? Right? Your road might look a little different than mine, but we're all following the same path. So what that means is this is just meant to give you guys the tool. How you choose to use these tools in your specific business, tailoring to your clients, is going to be up to you, right? So we're all looking for the same thing. We might just be looking in different areas for it. But what I would say is, guys, be authentic inside in terms of who you're looking for, because it's going to be easier to attract them. I can sit here and tell you to go and look for buyers that are looking for commercial plazas. That doesn't really match what the proposition you can offer. So if you know what you'd be looking for as a buyer, you're going to naturally attract those types of people to you. And then your script becomes natural. Doesn't necessarily have to come from a book, because now you know what you're talking about, right? So I'm going to share a story with you guys while we're on this page. So I'm going to talk about this last part here. So it says 51% of buyers visit an open house as a way to search for homes. It was my first year, and I'll never forget this specific lead because we're still friends. So I had a listing for sale, and I really wanted to host open houses because I found that I was good at it, right? I wasn't really great at being on the phones and cold calling leads or door knocking, but I really liked doing open houses and hosting events. So I would host open houses as many times as I could. I'd ask other realtors if I could. And I know last year, I know a lot of realtors that are on this call right now actually asked to host open houses as well. But basically this lead came through as a realtor.ca lead on my listing. And I walked her through the property with her husband, myself. And anyway, from that becoming a realtor.ca lead, she also then joined our open house, came to see the house. We walked through the house. She found it wasn't for her. She didn't like the house at all. She said it was not anything that she had thought it was going to be. Maybe my pictures were too good and she didn't like the house. So she's like, I'm out. Like, I don't want this place, right? I could have just let her go, right? I could have just said, okay, go ahead. You know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And I could have just been focused on just selling my listing, right? Instead, there was an opportunity there. Maybe I'm not showing her this house, right? At my open house, I also had 2 other listings printed out at my table. And I was able to show her and say to her, okay, listen, my open house finishes at 4. If you're okay with it at 4:30, there's 2 other listings down the street. I'd like to show them to you. Anyways, long story short, her and I and her husband ended up working together for 3 months. She felt comfortable enough that I was able to show her other listings other than just my own. And I really got down to organizing with her what it was she was really looking for and created a plan on how we were going to find what she was looking for now that I knew what she didn't want, right? And so this buyer lead actually is still a friend of mine, and she's referred me business every year since I've been licensed, 1 deal a year every year. And it was only because of the relationship that we built. So even if I hadn't sold her a house, right? At the end of the day, it's still business because she's still referring business, right? So even if that transaction didn't work out as I had planned, remember, there's always an opportunity within the opportunity. So if somebody shuts you down and says, no, we're not looking, well, do you know somebody who's looking? How can I help your friend or your family member or anybody else that, you know what I mean? So I'm still keeping her and cultivating her in my database. She's now a homeowner of her own. She's now going to be a seller because she's looking to upgrade her house to another home. So I'm going to be buying a house and selling a house with her. And she's referred me a family member every year to purchase a house because now she wants other people to experience what she experienced, right? So that's just an example of how do I find a buyer? How do I cultivate them, right? How do we ask for a referral and then keep them in our database for repeat business?
Yeah.
Hey man, how's it going?
Okay.
Hello? Is that Edna? Oh, let me just mute him. Here we go. Okay. Thought there was somebody for me on the call. I'm like, hello. Okay. Yes, so there's that. So basically the point of the story here is just make sure that you're following up with your lead, right? Make sure that you're keeping up with them. Don't forget about them. Don't just leave them on the back burner just because it wasn't business today. All right, so now this next part here of our presentation talks about cultivating buyer leads. So once we've had a conversation with a potential lead, we need to cultivate that lead. So this is where we're going to talk about command, right? And how do we look at our lead generation model to see where maybe the cultivation piece is failing, right? So you have a buyer, now you need to nurture them, which is what cultivating means. So you're nurturing the lead. This is probably one of the most important parts because if this fails, you're not moving on to sign an agreement. Like if we're not keeping up with these leads, you can get as many leads as you want, guys. You could have thousands of leads in your database and not one deal come out of it because you're not working them, right? You're not, when I say working them, you're not touching base with them. You're not asking if their plans have changed. So we're going to go through and I'm going to show you guys the lead funnel here. So this is basically what a lead generation model would look like if you were a solo agent. This is where we start capturing leads and then we're adding them to our database. So once you found a lead, you now need to basically cultivate or nurture them. Basically what cultivating and nurturing means is that you have to put them in some sort of an interactive action-based touch point program. Whether you're using command or something else, the pen and paper guys, you might be able to do that over for the first few months of your business when you don't have a lot going on. But if I was you, I would be finding some system that works for you, whether it's command or something else. Find what's going to work for you, a system that you find easy to navigate and that you want to use so that a lead doesn't go unnoticed. Okay, so one of the things that we talk about at KW, obviously because command is linked with KW, is our smart plans, right? So basically smart plans are triggers. So it's like a series of events that is meant to get you into the relationship part of working your lead, right? So it's basically tasks that come up. You set them up on a smart plan, and then the smart plan will send you notifications and them notifications as to at what point they're at in the touch point system, so that they're not left feeling like they're in the dark. Okay, so we're going to practice. How do we do this? So if you guys have your computer with you and if you guys want to try doing this on your own, you can. It's really simple. So when So if you're in command here, you see you have contacts here, right? So you would first need to add your lead as a contact. So I'm going to use myself as an example, and you guys can too. So you can add yourself as an example just to see what the smart plans look like. Okay. So I've added myself to command as a contact here. Then I'm going here to the right where it says smart plans. Okay. So now I'm going to click add a smart plan. And maybe what I'll do for myself is, which one do I want to use? Let's use long-term nurture. This is for somebody that you want to have conversations with, but not all the time, right? It's like somebody that's not ready to buy or sell right now. There's somebody you just want to nurture in your database. Okay, so this is the one I would select. I'd like my plan to start now, or if you wanted to start on another day, you would just customize that part. You're going to click confirm. And when you click confirm, you're going to see, okay, what's going on with this type of what we also call drip campaign, or you can call it a smart plan, or you can use any terms you want to use. But here it says it's for 30 days. And then you're going to have to reset it. Okay. So it's showing you that, you have to make a phone call. You're going to have to also interact with them. Maybe you're doing it through an email, or you're sending them a text. Here's another text one too. And they give you an idea here. If you hover over it, guys, it'll actually show you like what sample text messages you can use to touch base with them. So let's read the first one. Hey there, I know your real estate needs are further off, but I just wanted to make sure you're getting all the tools and information you need for me to support you as we prepare for that day. How can I help you today? Right? You can obviously revise that to make it sound more like you. I would definitely, I'd say, I wouldn't end off with my first and last name, but I would say, hope all is well with you and your family. Thanks, Steph, kind of thing, right? So I would customize these, but this is just meant to give you some sort of a guide. But that is basically how you add a smart plan to a contact in your database, okay? Other ones that you can select, honestly, if you guys have time, I would even go through these one-on-one to see what they are and what they contain. So here's one for my open house follow-up, okay? Let's select this one. So you're going to send a text. What did you think of the open house? Then a day goes by. Then it's going to prompt, nice to meet you at the open house. Maybe you email them, right? See if they need anything else. And then it's just going to go through it, right? You're going to go through all the different touch points. You're going to give them a call, send them a message, ask them if it's not that house that they're looking for, is there anything else that you can help them with? This is basically meant to keep you on track so that you don't forget them, and to obviously nurture your lead. Okay. So that was that part of adding a smart plan. Does anybody have questions on how to add a smart plan to a contact? If you have any questions, guys, you can also reach out here on the chat box. Let's see where we're at. Sounds like you guys are good with this part. Okay. So this is my favorite part, qualifying buyer leads. Okay. So leads that you're working with, they're going to be at different points of their journey, right? There's no two leads that are the exact same. They might not be ready to buy a home right now. You might meet somebody and they're saving for their first house, and it's going to take them 2 years maybe, or you're going to work with somebody who needs to sell their house, or you're going to work with somebody who's looking to be a first-time home buyer and now there's changing jobs. Like every buyer lead is going to be different, right? So basically we're going to go over how we qualify a buyer lead in the next step, but also we're going to have to distinguish them. We're going to have to distinguish between the ones that are ready right now that we need to act on. And we're going to have to also decide which ones are going to be the ones that we need to nurture on. For example, a long-term smart plan. Okay. So this part is qualifying your buyer leads. So you're going to have A, B, and C categories, right? And this is all determined after you have your initial conversation with them. So what I like to use, which you guys have access to, is a buyer lead sheet in your toolkit. And we'll go over that next, okay? But basically the first step is to book conversation with them over the phone. So now you have your lead, you have them, you know that they want to purchase a house. Maybe it's in the next 3, 6, 9 months to a year. Now you're going to jump on a phone call with them and start pre-qualifying them. That's your second step. Pre-qualifying is asking the right questions to then be able to classify and determine which pile basically they go into. Are they an A buyer? Are they able, ready, willing to purchase? Will they be under contract in a matter of a week, right? The second one is maybe a B buyer. They're not ready to buy right now, but in the near future, they're going to be, more active in looking. But right now, they just want to start looking. They're not really sure. Maybe they need to wait for a lease to expire. Maybe they're leasing right now. Maybe they need they're waiting on a down payment or an inheritance. A C buyer is somebody that has no immediate need at all. Maybe they're super excited to one day become homeowners, but maybe they're in the stage that they first need to figure out their finances. They have a huge house to sell. They don't even know what area they want to move to. They have kids that are still in a specific school that they want to be by, but they have plans of maybe upsizing to that dream home down the road. Okay. So in these stages, we have to make sure that we're still nurturing these leads. So you can, like I said earlier, put them in a smart plan. You can also even create prospect searches for them in a specific neighborhood that that they really want to work, that they really want to be living in. So we can still do things along the road to stay in touch with them to see if their plans have changed. And guys, just as a heads up, like this C person, they might not be ready today and they have plans in 2 years to move. But I've touched base with some buyers. Like today, I had one call me. I didn't think they were ready. But had I not have touched base with them and said, hey, just calling to see if things are going well, I wouldn't have known that actually their plans of moving have now changed. They want to move in 6 months because now their kids' hockey team has changed and their lives have changed. And with COVID and the pandemic, now she works from home so she can move further. So this C buyer might be an A buyer. We don't know that unless we keep in touch, right? And their plans are going to change often. I think there's some questions here. Thanks, Jenna, for answering that. Perfect. Do we have any questions surrounding qualifying buyer leads? I'm going to go over maybe I'll go over the lead sheet next, and then we can talk about it. Okay. Okay. So buyer lead sheet. Let me grab a copy of it. 1 second. So guys, when we're doing the buyer lead sheet in your toolkit, it's basically this is going to help you guys to qualify your buyer, right? It's going to also help you uncover, like, is my buyer even really ready? Like, they might say they're ready, but do they have financing in order? Like, are they serious? If they might say we're ready, but their plans of ready don't need, like, they think like it's like a year from now, right? So we have to ask the right questions, which is price, motivation, the location that they're moving to, what are their wants and needs, their finances, their availability. Here's an example of this lead sheet that I'm talking about right here. So the important part of using this lead sheet, guys, again, is to avoid wasted time and to be able to properly redirect your energy where it's required most, like those A and B leads, right? It's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily mean that C column doesn't matter. It's just not immediate, right? It's not business for right now, right? So it also helps us to put a follow-up plan in place. Again, just like I said earlier, if they're not ready to buy right now, it doesn't mean that they're not ready forever. Okay. So this is how I would use, this tool. Okay. So basically you would start off by getting on a phone call. So you have to book the call first. Let me see. Oh, Bella. So, in B, let me go back. So the B column that we talked about earlier were people who were able to buy, but they're not ready, say, right at the second. Okay. So maybe, for example, they're waiting for their lease to expire on their house that they're in right now. Maybe they're leasing. Maybe they're just finalizing their financing approval with the bank, that kind of thing.
Thank you. I thought there was a timeline for that, so thank you.
No, it's basically you would create that timeline with them, right? You would just have to, it just is a way, like a tool you can use to classify your leads, so it's easier. So then basically like I had one of these yesterday, guys. So the buyer and I talked through text first, right? Because I was doing my follow-up. I found the lead and now I need to basically qualify and cultivate them. Okay. So I would put yesterday's date at the top. Then here we're going to talk about, so you see how it says lead source property that prompted the call? This is not necessarily going to be filled in all the time. You might have a brand new first-time buyer like I did yesterday that doesn't have a specific property in mind, right? But I would just put the date at the top here of this lead sheet. So I'm getting all of their contact information. Some of this I probably have before the call that I can pre-fill out. And I love asking this question when I first reach them. What's the best way to get in touch with you and the best times? Like this lead that I had yesterday, she works during the day. So I need to make sure that I'm available for her when she finishes work. And then that prompts that second question, right? Like, what do you do for a living? What are the best times I can reach you? Is text okay? Can I call you? Right? We're asking, we want to get on the phone with them, guys, because this is very crucial. Like this buyer consultation phone call, if you're not meeting in person, a lot of us are doing things over the phone. So I would say this is like your consultation part where you need to get all the information and set the expectation of what's next for them so that they don't feel lost. Okay. So in this case, I would put by phone. And then here are some pre-qualifying questions that I really like. So are you working with another agent? Basically on number one, has an agent taken you out and shown you any properties? Yes or no? If yes, how's it going, right? They might have a friend that's showing them properties, but it doesn't mean that they're signed under a contract. Okay, so unless they're signed with a buyer consultation agreement, they're not signed and working with any one realtor. So instead of saying, are you working with a realtor? What I like to ask instead is, are you signed in a contract with another agent? Because those are two very different things, right? That will determine how we move forward. The other one is there anybody else buying a home with you? So in this specific case that I was working with yesterday, yes, it was her husband, and her husband and her mom. So 3 people are going to be going on title. That prompts me to know that I need to engage with 3 people moving forward, not just the one, right? I need to keep everybody in mind. So then what I would likely do with this lead sheet is maybe I might have, for the contact information here, I'll probably have 3-page ones, right? Because now I need to get everybody's information so that I make sure that I'm adding all 3 as contacts to my database. The one thing I'll never forget when somebody said this in Ignite was, okay, it's 3 people that I'm working with, but I'm only really communicating with one of them because one of them is a decision maker. Do you guys think it's worth it to put all 3 in your database or just the one that you're going to be working with primarily, and why? This is my question for you guys. What do you guys think?
I think just because the 3 of them are transacting in this transaction together doesn't mean that they're not going to do anything individually in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jenna. So like I had a buyer that actually got divorced, right? And lucky I had both contact him and his wife in my command. So originally, guys, I was just putting Mr. and Miss Smith, but a year after being in business, I started actually removing the Mr. and Miss and putting them each as their own. And that's because you don't know where life's going to take them in the future, right? I had a lead last year sell their home and both of them became buyers because they both split up, right? So we're making sure that we're adding everybody into command as their own person so that your communication goes to each of them. Then the third question is who will be living in your home? How long have you been looking for a home? Maybe they're just at the beginning stages or they have been looking and we don't know until now. And then we can ask them, why are you moving, right? What would be important about your next move? Are you thinking it's because your spaces, maybe their space is too big, too small? We're leaving that open-ended for them to be able to tell us their story, right? The other one here that says, are you renting now or do you own? So if they're a renter, you know that you're maybe they're first-time buyers or they're previously owned and now need to get back into the market. And if they're owning, do you need to sell your house before you move? Do you know when your lease is up? This is going to help us determine their timeline. Do you need to sell your current home before you buy your next? If you've signed a listing agreement with a real estate agent, have you signed a listing agreement to sell your home? Yes or no? And this is right here where you could say, well, I would like to give you a free market analysis of your house before we look into buying your house, right? You can ask that question there too. You can get both the listing and the sale, right? And this is a good opportunity for you to offer them, you know, to help them with that rebuttal, because I know that that is the biggest thing that comes up right now in my conversations is, yeah, but I have a house to sell. And if I don't know what my house is worth, I can't really buy, right? So you can help them there with that. The next question is asking, are you working, do you need a mortgage, or do you have equity? Maybe they have cash, maybe they have savings, maybe they've invested in stocks or have savings somewhere that they don't need to take out a mortgage, right? So let's not assume that everybody needs to take out a mortgage. And then here you go. So this is the most important qualifying question when you're working with any buyer. Have you been pre-approved by a lender? If they've been pre-approved, guys, please ask them for a copy of their pre-approval letter. You need to read it. It's very important that you read it. Why do we need to know? Like, why do we need to know? If you know, some realtors might say to you, well, we trust them, right? Like they told us they were approved at 800,000. What do you guys think? If I tell you guys, I'm approved for 800,000. What does that even mean? Like, are you approved for, yeah, exactly. How much is their spending power? Absolutely. If I say to you, guys, I'm approved for 800,000. What does that even mean? Does that mean you're approved to purchase a house for 800,000 or the mortgage is for 800,000? I've had that come up before too. That's our job, right? Our job is to work with the buyer to ask them the right questions. And if they don't know, let them send the information to you. And maybe you need to jump on a call with their mortgage advisor to get things, to understand things. Sorry, I'm just trying to understand this. I'm going to be starting to work with this buyer as of next week. I understand that you prepared a pre-approval letter for them. Are they pre-approved to purchase a house up to 800,000, or did you mean that they qualify for a mortgage of 800,000 plus whatever they're putting in? Maybe the mortgage is 800, but they have $400,000 that they're putting in on their own. Now the house purchase is 1.2 million. So it's getting very clear to ask the right questions, right? And I've come into experiences with this of my own where somebody said to me, yeah, I got approved for a mortgage for 300,000. That doesn't mean much for us, right? But I didn't know that they were putting in more than they needed to put in. And now they're actually qualified for 600, right? So getting that pre-approval letter in your hand is important. You need to read it. That's another part of this, right? You need to learn how to read pre-approval letters. Don't get intimidated by them. It's not your job to get them the financing. You can automatically call the person that worked on their file, which is going to be underneath their pre-approval letter, give them a shout, build that rapport. Let them know that you're the realtor that they're going to be working with. The next question here is, what price are you comfortable with? And this is where you can start talking about pricing. First, you ask them, if you were to purchase a house in the next 3 to 6 months, what price point are you comfortable with? After we talk about comfortability, we need to talk about expectation and what our market looks like today. Let's say you were qualifying a buyer lead today. And they say to you, well, we're approved for $1 million, but we'd really like to spend 800,000. How would that conversation go, guys? I'm sure some of you have had this experience already. Please share in the group. You can raise or message in the chat.
I'm then going to show them listings at the $800,000 mark and at the $1 million mark.
Right? So we're going to show them like, guys, this is what you guys are comfortable with. Are you guys comfortable with renovating? Are you comfortable maybe at that $800,000 mark, you're competing with way more buyers, you know, to buy a house that you're probably going to have to fix up. Maybe that's their plan. Maybe they want to fix up a house, you know, but we don't know unless we ask the right questions, right? So what they're comfortable spending might not be the reality. And so our job is when we're on this qualifying call, we're not just qualifying them for their finances, but we're qualifying them and giving them market information too, so that they can buy and make the right decisions. So we have to be the market experts, right? So we're qualifying them to make sure that they understand what's going on in the market. And if they don't, the next step would be for you to educate them. Number 9 is a really good question. Is anybody else involved with your home buying decision? So it's important because if you're working with somebody who needs, for example, money, or they're getting a loan from someone, or maybe, you know, you're speaking with a wife and the husband's busy or out of town for work, we need to know who's involved with the home buying decision, so we know who we're going to be working with. And then the number 10 is on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 meaning you must buy a home as quickly as possible, and 1 meaning you're not sure you really want to buy anything. How would you rate yourself? Okay, so we can see where they stand. When do you need to be in your new home? And then number 12, I'd love to help you buy a home. In order to help you find a perfect home, all we need to do is set up an appointment with all of the decision makers if they're not on the call, so I can help you get what you want in the time that you want. What is a better time for us to meet? If you're not meeting guys in person still, you can jump on a Zoom call like we are here today, or you can do a 3-way call like I did last night. It saved us a lot of time, and everybody was on the same page after the call. Okay. So that's basically how I've used this buyer lead sheet. And I'll be honest, sometimes this buyer lead sheet changes, right? If you're working with somebody and they filled this out in January, say this month, and they still haven't bought by next year, I'd ask them again, like, hey guys, your buyer lead sheet, this is what I had for you on file. Right now, you're going to look like the professional. This is what I have on file for you. Can you let me know if any of this has changed? So keeping up with this buyer lead sheet, it can change time over time again. And you might also be able to even make these notes and transfer these notes into Command as a note to let you know, you can make a template for yourself and just transfer all of this over, so that you have an ongoing note created that can be updated as your time with them goes on, right? So here, if we go back to this part here, we went through that. We went through qualifying your buyers. So let's talk about, now that you've qualified them, okay, we've qualified our lead. We know that they're ready to go. We've talked about their financing. We have discussed with them who their mortgage broker is. We know how much they're pre-approved for. If they don't have somebody, we're connecting them with someone. We know what their timeline looks like. And now we're moving on to basically wrapping this part up with signing a buyer's agreement, right? So we need to inform them about how our buyer agency or how our buyer agreement works. And this is the, I like the order that this is in. I like that it's you're first finding your buyer, then you're working with them to cultivate them. Now you're qualifying them, and now you're signing an agreement before you start going to show properties. So once we know this is a qualified lead and that they're going to be moving on to viewing homes and potentially putting in offers, this is why this buyer agreement comes next. So you're not going to be putting in any offers. You're not moving past this marker until you've signed a buyer's representation agreement with them. Because without this buyer's representation agreement, they could be working with 5 other agents and you could be wasting your time. So this just tells us that they're serious. They're ready to move on. I like to have this signed before I move on to showing them properties. I will say though, and this is all honesty, I've actually shown listings to buyers. One listing, I'll do one listing. I'll show them one listing before I sign the buyer's rep. And that's because I want to meet them in person and see if we can work together as well. Right? So it's one thing to qualify them. If I go out and show them one house, I feel okay with that, not having a buyer's representation agreement signed if I'm only showing them one property. And that's because I'm going to pre-qualify them as well, right? When I meet them on site, I want to set the expectations with them. I want to let them know what it's going to look like to even preview a house, what the rules are when we're going through a property, what we're looking for, what we're not looking for, what's included, what's not. But when we're there, it gives us an opportunity to build rapport and try to see if we can even work together and build that relationship. Because when you're working with buyer guys, especially in this market, it might not be that you're only working with them for 30 days. You might be working with them for 6 months to a year, depending how serious they are about purchasing a house. So you want to make sure that you can actually represent them, that you feel good about working with them. And so before I sign a buyer's rep, I do give them that one time where I will meet them on site and walk through a house with them and see if we can work together. So signing a buyer's representation agreement. So the first thing we did was basically we found a motivated buyer. And then we want to turn them into a warm lead, ask for an appointment, and then we need to close them, right? So by completing what we just completed, which was the buyer lead sheet, and by rating them A, B, or C, we can then determine when we can ask for their business, right? So asking for business means, when are you going to be ready to buy? Asking for the appointment is, okay, perfect. So you're ready to go. You found a property that you like. Can we meet Friday at 3 or 1 o'clock tomorrow, kind of thing. And then we know that we need to access financing needs. So have you spoken with a lender? If they haven't, do you have somebody that you can rent to them? And then the most important part of this, guys, is when they know that they can come to you and that you have lenders of choice that you can refer them to, that you've personally done business with. Usually I find buyers really love that. They really like knowing that if they don't have somebody that they can trust, that you have somebody for them. So the importance of this buyer's representation in general is so that we can move on with submitting offers for them, that they know that they're committed to a buyer representation with us and that we're able to represent them. Without a buyer's representation agreement, we're not going to essentially get paid, right? So we want to make sure that your time is also valued as well. And then the other thing too is when we're doing a buyer's rep, we also have to make sure that we go through that buyer's rep with them, because it's one thing to just upload it to DocuSign and send it. But if you can send this ahead of time to allow them to read it and give them the forms explained attached to it in an email before you even send this for them to sign. I really liked practicing that in the beginning of my business, because I also got to learn what the agreement said. And if they had any questions, I could ask maybe our broker of record or my coach or somebody that I was working with to explain it. They need to know what they're signing, right? You also need to make it clear that when they're signing this buyer's representation agreement, that they're solely working with you. Okay. So if they're communicating with another agent, they need to be communicating with you. I remember one time I was working with a buyer lead, and they ended up, I think it was in the beginning, and they ended up going to an open house. And then they were like, then it ended up that my client was like negotiating back and forth with like the listing agent at the open house. And it was just a nightmare. Anyways, long story short, that agent didn't know that my client was working with me. Right. And so one, I've wasted that listing agent's time. My buyers just thought that they were doing what they were supposed to do because they want to buy the house. And they didn't even realize that it was going to, affect our relationship or whatever that looked like. And they ended up, they were working, like talking with the listing agent to submit an offer. And I'm like, no, guys, like, that's why I'm here. Right. So that was my fault. That was my fault in the beginning, because I didn't set the expectation and let them know, if you see a property that you like, and if you're going to an open house without me, let me know so that I can let that listing agent know that you're coming. But if they don't know what they don't know, then they're not going to know what to do. So when you're signing the listing agreement, make sure that they know what they're signing, that they're coming into an agreement with you, that going forward for as many months as you guys agree on, if it's 6 months or less, that over those 6 month period, if anything comes up, if the listing comes up, if they plan on going to see a property, if they're communicating with another agent, all of this happens with you first in mind. Any questions they have, they should be coming to you first. And not to the listing agent, right? That's your job. That's why you're being reimbursed on the seller side. What else did I want to tell you guys about this part that was important? Oh, yes. Okay. So in 2019, guys, the profile of home buyer and seller, which was a report that was done, said that 20% of all buyers were pre-qualified for a mortgage online, and only 11% found their mortgage lender online. This means that you can be a great resource by suggesting a few great lenders in your area. So basically, only 11% of people who filled out one of those online apps actually secured their mortgage agent that way. So you can be a great resource when you have, the right home appraisers on your side, when you have your mortgage lenders that you work with on site. maybe a home, an inspector, a contractor. Like if you have people that you can recommend, use them, right? You're not just there to sell a house. You're there to guide them through the entire process, beginning to end. You're guiding them from when they're not even ready to being fully ready and closing. Like you're with them from the whole process. It doesn't just, you don't just sign the buyer's representation agreement, go show them a couple houses and think that you're done. You're with them through the whole process. And that's what's going to distinguish you from another agent. Guys, do you know how many agents and other brokerages don't qualify their buyers? I have friends working in other offices, which I won't say which ones they are. They don't care, because for them, they say to me, Steph, that's not my job. That's the buyer's job to make sure that they're pre-qualified. I could never work like that person. I know none of you guys would, but I need to know what's going on. I need to know that they're actually qualified and for how much, so that I can close the deal. There's nothing worse than getting yourselves to a point where you have an agreement for it not to close. What a waste of time, right? I'm just looking at the chat here. No, Tony, I wouldn't say so. Like I've referred business out to, like, my brother who's a licensed plumber, but what I would say is give them 3 options of each to choose from and let them make the choice, so that it doesn't seem biased. Like I can say to them, yeah, well, my brother's a plumber, but there's also 2 other companies that I would recommend as well. And if you guys don't know anyone, on our KW Facebook page, if you just search in the search tab, plumber, electrician, contractor, you're going to see like threads and threads and threads of agents that have recommended people in the past. Yeah, perfect. Good. What else did I want to tell you guys? I wanted to tell you guys something else. There was that part. Guys, how do we qualify like lenders? This is a good question. I want to ask you guys, have you ever have you guys started booking meetings with mortgage lenders or people at the bank to build that relationship with them? How do you guys qualify them? Let me see if anybody wants to share. Don't be shy, guys.
I have a few different friends that I use right now.
Awesome.
It's all about, for me, it's their level of service and their timeliness and their communication. So I have friends that are mortgage brokers, but there's certainly some that, like, if I'm in a last minute pinch and we need to get stuff processed in the next 48 hours, there's some I won't use.
Right. So they're basically, you're saying you have different mortgage lenders based on the person. Like you can, yeah.
Based on my needs or my clients' needs, really.
Anybody else want to share how they're qualifying their lenders? And if you don't have a lender, guys, that's fine. You don't need to have one right away, right? But I would recommend, if you don't have one, that's where you can start. So even if it's a bank that you go to often, you should ask the teller, like, who here does mortgages for you, right? I would go in and have an appointment with them. Can we have a conversation? Let's talk. This is what I offer. Guys, in that conversation, it's a 2-way. You have clients they can service and vice versa. So, and what Jenna said is right. Okay, so you're going to have different types of buyers. If you have somebody, say, that's self-employed and doesn't get a loan through the traditional bank, who's your mortgage broker? That's how I qualify them. Do you work with people who are self-employed that are not going to get a mortgage at the bank? Do you work with people who are first-time buyers? Can you work with investors who are over-leveraged? Do you have other options for them? Not just necessarily on the A side. Do you have private lending? Right? So your traditional mortgage broker, like I have 3 mortgage brokers that I work with, but they're all different. I might send one to one broker that I know is a little bit softer, nicer, right? For a specific family that I know will relate better. And it all goes with personality. We're basically matchmaking here, right? So then I might send, I know my investor client who wants things a certain way, right away, right now, to somebody else. And so you got to feel your buyer. And then you can't have one solution. That's basically what I'm saying. You got to have like three people at least who you're working with for different things. Some people might say to you, you know what, Steph, I have a really good relationship with the person at my bank. I've been seeing them for 30 years. I trust them. Perfect. You don't have to connect them, right? If they know somebody, that's great. What I would ask though, is for them to give you the name, the phone number, and the email address of that person that day that they're working with them. And right away, guys, I go in my email and I compose an email and I introduce myself and I put the name of the buyers in the subject line and I'm waiting on a response because now I want to see how fast is this broker going to work with me in this kind of a market? Are they available? What are their hours? Can I get them during an offer presentation on the weekend? And then I would also explain this, what you're finding to your buyer to determine, is this the right person that they should be working with in this type of a market? But if we can't access them fast enough, if we need a little bit more speed, like there's a lot of things that go behind selecting the right person that's going to represent them. You and the mortgage broker guys are like this. You are like, this is how it's a recipe that's going to either make the cake or make a disaster. You can't have one without the other. It doesn't work because you're not going to be able to get them the financing. We need the financing to get the house. Those two things have to be able to work together. Very important. Before I even started working with buyers, guys, I was going to banks, introducing myself, calling mortgage brokers, give me information on what the market looks like right now so I can share to buyers. And then when you share the information of what you learned from the lender, that's when you get the buyer. Because now you're coming with value. If you're looking for business, there's a difference between looking for business and getting business through giving something first. And I also find that might help you with your scripts as well. If you come from a place of giving them something, like, guys, I want to tell you that the mortgage rates are going to XYZ. What does that mean for them? Where are you getting this information? You're not making it up. You're getting it because you're building rapport with mortgage brokers. You're going to take that information and you're going to give it to your buyers. So that getting your lead in the beginning part is easier for you because now you have something to tell them. You have something to call them about, right? Who in the room is working with the buyer right now? Anybody? Is anybody working with a buyer right now? There's got to be people. You are, Jenna?
Yeah, I got 2 active ones putting in offers this week.
Perfect. And how are you finding that?
I mean, they're 2 completely different market. One is in Toronto and one's a first time home buyer here in Barrie. We just submitted our second offer in 24 hours for the first time home buyer. So 2 completely different transactions.
Right.
I mean, it's good. It's tough. There's a lot of buyers. They have either minimal budgets or the expectation is this is my budget or I'm not paying above this price. But I mean, we're getting more inventory, I find, day over day over day. So the options, you know, they're starting to become a little bit easier.
So basically, what would your script be then, Jenna? So if I'm your buyer and you're working with me and you're showing me around, right? And I can afford 400,000, right? And so I'm looking probably for a condo, right? In the north. Let's say I'm looking for a condo.
Yep.
And, you know, we put an offer in, right? So now you have me, we're working together. I've signed a buyer's representation with you. I'm committed to you. I have my financing. And now, you know, you submit an offer for me to purchase a property. And we're at now the point of, okay, Steph, like we didn't get this condo for you. For whatever reason, I'm lacking a bit in terms of my affordability. What do you do with me? What is your next step if I've lost that offer? You know?
I mean, we dealt with this last night. So we lost an offer last night on a property. And so the questions today, I mean, our offer was very clean. It was pretty much a cash offer, being 0 conditions. So the conversation today was, you know, is there any wiggle room? Is there any parent willing to lend you a little bit more money? Just looking for other options. I mean, yeah, when their budget actually is 425. So that's what we're dealing with. And that was really the only conversation we could go with because we didn't have conditions. We're fully approved.
Yeah, you're
and
fully
it's just,
approved.
They're pretty maxed out on, you know, their jobs. They've both been in their jobs for a couple of years and, you know, unless we want to wait another year and do another pre-approval. So they had some wiggle room with borrowing possibly an additional $10,000 from parents. So we're working with that now.
So that's good. So you're basically finding other solutions for them and not basically saying, okay, it's done here, but you need to improve your offer, basically.
Yeah.
So we're saying, okay, guys, like you're not just there yet, right? So what you're looking for and what you can afford are two different things at this point. So yes, we've got a pre-approval. So basically now we're in a position where you could be in a position where you have your pre-approval back from the bank. And now you as the agent might need to go back to them. So it's re-qualifying again. So that qualification period might be going in circles until you guys nail that deal. It doesn't just end. You don't just say, okay, my hands are up in the air. What's the next solution? Can we look at a B lender option? What do we have any other products we can use to support them?
Can we look 45 minutes outside
Can
of
we
the
look somewhere else? Sure. Can we look somewhere else? Well, that's not really an area I service. Can you build a rapport as a referral agent?
Mm-hmm.
There's opportunities to be had everywhere, but it's up to us as the agent to be creative, to show them their options, to help them make the decision. We're here to bring the knowledge and information to them. And then we have to act as a resource when they need it, if we see them sinking in any area. That's how we're working with buyers. That's how we win with buyers. This is how we get repeat business. This part of our presentation, guys, is just basically recapping everything that we talked about. And I just want to go back to one quote that I found here. It says, 90% of our buyers would use their agent again or recommend their agent to somebody else. So the reason I wanted to point this out is to give you guys any clue, maybe a clue as to, what we can do once we've maybe completed a transaction with a buyer. Maybe we put them on a smart plan to nurture them, to ask for repeat and referral business so that they come back or they have friends or family that come back to us. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen here because I want to just talk to you guys a little bit about. I'm just going to stop sharing that screen. Is it back on me now, guys? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I want to share something with you. I went on Instagram and I asked my database if they were to work with a realtor again, what did they not like and what did they like? And a lot of these people I've never worked with, right? I've never had the pleasure of working with them. Only a fraction of them have I worked with. And the reason I'm asking this question is so that I can bring it back so we can all talk about what their experiences were. Because ultimately it's your reputation that's going to bring in everything that we just talked about. It's all going to bring back from the reputation and the experience that they had working with you as a buyer's agent. Being a buyer's agent, guys, is a very emotional process, as we know. It's very emotional. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. You win, you lose, you win, you lose. But it's keeping up with that momentum and keeping them focused on their goal and reminding them why they started, right? So I got all these messages, guys. This is my question to them. I said, let me go back to it. My question was to them, what did you like or not like about your home buying experience? And these were some of the guys, I literally got so many messages just asking that, okay? So I had this part. Okay, so this person said, I didn't like my follow-up with the seller. So what she's saying is basically after the deal was accepted, she didn't like the communication that went on with not following up with the seller. So in her experience, she bought the house and now she's saying, basically her follow-up, like, when we're working one-on-one with the listing agent as a buyer's agent, and maybe, you're asking questions about the house and it doesn't come back to you in time, or the seller just decides not to give you the information you need before closing. So she felt that part was a gap. So we can learn from that, right? We can learn that even though our deal does get accepted, it's not done. Like that closing period is just as important as getting the lead. I had another person say, I had a really bad experience with my realtor. it felt like she wasn't working in my best interest and just wanted the sale and the commission. And people can feel that energy, right? Like people know when you're just trying to close the deal. They sense that, they feel that. And honestly, guys, if she's telling me that, she's probably not going to work with that person again, right? What do you guys think? Like, what do you guys think of those responses? I'm trying to see if I can find another one. Or have you guys had anybody tell you what you did well or what you didn't do well? If you've been working with, even if you're working with tenants, like tenants or buyers or people that you're representing. Let me see. How about you, Stace? You've worked with some buyers in the past. Like, have you asked them for feedback?
Yeah, I have. I'm trying to think. Something that just stands out right away is when buyers feel forced to sign an agreement. And they
I
don't
see.
want to work with that agent.
Right. Like signing an agreement with you, like a representation agreement.
Yes. So that made me really think about my own strategy and how I'm doing things. So I've changed a couple of things with that. But other than that, I know I can't really think of anything good.
How have you changed it? If you don't mind us, mind me asking, are you still using the buyer's rep like before you?
I am not using it right away. I'm not focusing so much on getting it signed as I was.
Sure.
I'm going to just be more like, I want to protect my time, but at the same time, I don't want them to feel like, gosh, why does she keep bringing up this buyer representation agreement? Everyone else will anyway. So I just want to focus on, showing them the value I can add to working with me. And then, like you said, Steph, like I'll show a house, right? The first time, get to know them, make sure that's going to work for the two of us to have a good relationship. And then I will proceed with a more serious discussion to protect my time, protect my commission, only when I feel it's not going to jeopardize the relationship.
Absolutely. I love that. Definitely. And you're right too, because we do have to protect our time, because I think people who maybe are not wanting to sign a buyer's representation agreement with you, either one, they're not comfortable because they're scared, or maybe they don't understand the form and what that means. So we need to explain to them that there's no fee to them, right, to use us as realtors, and how our commission is paid is through a listing once they've signed. Two, they want to know that if the relationship isn't working, guys, that we're willing to cancel our agreement with them and not hold them hostage to it. And the third thing I find around that is the other reason why somebody wouldn't want to sign it is probably because you're not the only person that they're working with. I have a problem with that personally, because I don't want to take my weekends away from my family to run around, show you a property that you're going to then use to get your friend to draft an offer for you. I have a problem with that, right? And we all should, because we value ourselves and we respect ourselves. And if you guys have more than one job, you know what it's like to lose a shift at work, to go run around, show a buyer a place that you're not going to get. So those are the three things. I actually wrote them down here because I wanted to talk to you guys about them, because I wanted to talk about, on this topic specifically about, only working for your commission and not feeling like you're protected, and the buyer's rep. But there are some things that come up with working with our buyers that need more explanation. So some of the challenges that come up are, like Stacey said, like not signing a buyer's rep. Like that is important, but is it the only thing? No, I think the most important part is one, getting the lead and building the relationship. But I do think it comes to a point where we need to make them aware that we're also in business for self. And in order for us to properly represent their best interest under our license, because at the end of the day, guys, under our license, we're going to book that appointment with. We're going into that person's home with them. So now they're our liability, only for them not to sign a contract with us. That can be a liability on its own. And you guys are paying insurance for yourselves. You're in business for self.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to make sure that, yes, you can, okay, fine, you let off the first one. Then now it's not part of your process. Then you're not signing buyer representations agreements at all. And you might be losing commission because that person is going to work with somebody else, because they take their business seriously and they have processes in place.
G, sir.
Let me just freeze him again. What else did I want to tell you? What other challenges come up when we're working with buyers? Maybe they have a home to sell, right? That's a big one that's coming up lately. They're scared to sell. They don't know what they're going to make for their home. How are you guys working with buyers who want to move forward with a buyer rep or working with you, but they have a house to sell?
I'm working with one now, not to keep talking here, but
Yeah, go ahead.
they are homeowners and they want to sell and buy, but they're very specific about what they're looking for in the new home.
Right.
So, right now, my relationship, like we're friends, right? So my relationship is already built and there's the trust there. So basically, I'm just following up, every so often, making sure that they're seeing listings that are coming available to them, and also pointing out things that, like I'll say things like, I understand that this was on your wants list, but might not have it, but like, look at the positives, because they're being very, very, it's almost too specific.
Right.
So anyways, I'm just trying to navigate through that. It might take a while, but
yeah, and they might not be ready. Maybe they're not ready this year, and then, I have a lead guy as a buyer that I've been working for 4 years. 4 years. I haven't given up on her because one day she's going to be something, but 4 years. And I'm not saying I sit here every day and I call her. No, like, every 3 times a year, I touch base with her. I send her my newsletter. I give her a market update. I say, hi, how's it going? Are you good? Like, how's your family? Right. Just, we build a friendship, but I'm not forcing her to sell. Right. It's more like when the time comes, I'm here. It's just basically like raising your hand. I'm here if you need anything, here if you need anything. I'm just raising my hand. Right. Not coming at her with, let's sell your house and buy something. I'm just saying, hey, I'm here. Are you guys good? And it could take 4 years, but she's still on my drip campaign. She's still receiving things from me. She will actually still reply from time to time to my email and be like, Steph, thank you for reaching out. Can you tell me what my neighbor sold for? I saw the sold sign, but I was too busy. I was going back, right? So she's still in the mindset of doing it. When the time comes that she's literally outgrown this house, I know she'll call me, right? She'll call me, or I'll touch base with her at the right time because I'm touching base with her every quarter kind of thing. What about working with buyers, guys? If we have a buyer that comes up and they say to you, hey, Jim, listen, I'm thinking of moving, man, but where I want to go to Chatham, right? You don't work Chatham area, let's say, but they're from your neighborhood. And now they want to move to Chatham. And it's an area that you don't necessarily know. There's 2 ways about going about it. You can go to Chatham and try to show them properties every week, or we can refer it. And I think that's a very personal question, because that's going to all depend on how you want to run your business, guys, and how you guys do things. But what are your experiences been with people that are looking for houses out of the area, and how do you feel about working with them? This is for anybody who wants to chime in.
I think it depends on a few things.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did a deal with a friend of mine who sold a house in Waterloo.
Okay.
And I drove out with her and we looked at the house. In fact, I did list it. I put it on their board. It sold in 8 days. So it worked out quite well. But of course, I'm not one of the hugely busier agents. I can understand that if you're absolutely jammed, that you may be just simpler to refer. But it ended up working out very well. I think I only had to go out there another 2 or 3 times, and it was like an hour drive. So in that particular instance, it worked out very well for me.
Love that. I love your experience on that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it worked out in your favor.
It was priced right. I got all the information on surrounding sales, and her and I were both in agreement with the listing price, and it actually sold a little quicker than I thought it would, but yeah, it worked quite well. So, if someone, 2 hours or what, you know what I mean? It kind of depends on, in my mind, how busy you are and what you're dealing with. If it looks like something that's might be a hot property and might go. As far as the other way around, me selling something like taking a buyer, I think I would tend to more refer.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So you would take a listing, but the buyer you'd probably refer.
Yeah, again, depending on the distance, you know, but
Sure.
I think everybody's situation is a bit different, so.
No, I totally agree. Like, I used to do a lot of work in like Amaranth, and I learned so much about septics and wells when I was out there. And that was my first month. And I didn't have any other business. I was going to Orangeville, Amaranth. I didn't even know where I was half the time. I went to Guelph. I had no clue. I didn't even know where I was. Honestly, if you literally GPS me, I couldn't even give you directions where I was. But like literally from those experiences came learning about elevations, floods, backup systems, septics, wells, freaking, I don't even know, like conservations, environmentally protected lands. Like, so you're right. So sometimes we look at it like, it's too far, forget it. Maybe you're right. If we take it for a second and we step back, we say, okay, we don't really have anything else going on right now that it's going to affect our relationship with somebody else that's on the table. Maybe you do take it with guidance and support, of course, through our office. We have a lot of agents in our office, and you do it. And maybe you're out there, and when you're out there, you're learning and you're asking the right questions. And so I don't know if it's a bad thing, because you learn something on every buy or on every sale that gives you the tools for your tool belt to be able to do it closer to home. But me too, like, even it was like my first year, I was doing deals way outside of my comfort zone, for sure.
Yeah.
So I would take it maybe
Yeah.
case by case, guys, like see where you're at when you receive the business. And if you need the help, refer it, because you can still make your 25% referral. I would refer it to somebody who I trust, for sure, somebody who I know will take care of them. And if you have the time, go and do it, right? Like, I know sometimes our office says refer, but there's so much to be learned when you're doing it yourself. And it's not necessarily just for that commission. It's just information that they would never have taught us in Humber or anywhere else. Like, you really need to get your hands dirty to feel out what somebody's buying. Remember, guys, it's more than just making that relationship and signing the buyer representation. Guys, you're selling a home, a property. It's not a joke. We're not selling Timbits. Like, we're selling houses. And I think sometimes we forget to wrap our head around it. Like, this is somebody's biggest purchase. You want to show up like you're the the person that needs to be on their team. And the thing that I learned about real estate when working with buyers is it's not just me. Who's in my back end, right? They're not just signing a buyer rep because they want to sign with Steph. Anybody can do that. They're signing with me because I have the people that I'm going to bring to the table to help them get the deal done and to protect them. When it comes time to a home inspection, I'm working with the best people who I have trust, people who I know are going to take care of them and are going to tell them to walk away from something if it's not for them, if something comes up, right? Anybody can just sell a house. Most buyers are working with you because they trust you and they like you. It's not how many houses I've listed and sold. When you're working on the buy side, it's a lot of relationship building. That's why you can convert 75% of them, right? Let me see, there's something that came up here. Yeah, so basically the way I've done it, she's asking about a partial BA. It gets complicated if you're doing that. Like if you're signing with like them and somebody else. I have seen it where we do it per area. So we'll say like, if Steph, Steph, I want to work with you, but I only want to work with you in Aurora because I know that you know the Aurora market. So I'll sign an Aurora buyer representation with them. Or they might have a buyer's rep with somebody else in the Durham area if they find something in Durham. So yes, you can split up the buyer rep that way if it's per area. But if it's not per area, guys, and like that's not your domain, it gets really challenging. Like, how do you know that other agent isn't showing them the house the day after you've shown them? Now, who's responsible for the offer? If they're working with you, they're working with you in that area, right? What else did I want to say here? That's that. We went over that. Basically, that was the majority of the content. I'm going to leave this up to you guys to ask whatever you want to ask. This is basically the next 20 minutes is for you guys. Let me know what your questions are about working and winning with buyers.
So I've had something come up recently.
Yes.
I'm working with a former colleague and she's looking to sell her condo and buy something bigger. Her family's growing and she's leaning towards pre-construction. How are we involved in that?
Perfect. I love this question. I just got off the phone with somebody about that. So pre-construction. Okay. There's not like a straight way. Okay. I'm gonna go like, when I think I go like this, it's like a zigzag. So we have to be ethical and not think of just commission, right, guys? Yes, yes. So not every builder will cooperate with you. And I'm finding a lot of builders now, with the market being how it is, are choosing not to cooperate because they don't have to. The houses are selling themselves, right? Pre-construction goes quickly. So they might say to you, listen, we're working with our own in-house sales agents, so we're not cooperating. First step for you is to ask your buyer, which projects are they looking at? If there's none and they don't have any in mind, you have to find them. So part of finding them is you calling the builders and asking them if they're going to cooperate, right? Let your buyer know that I'm going to be sending you pre-construction opportunities. You can share with them the Buzz Homes site. You know that site, right, Nicole?
Yeah.
Buzz Homes. Okay. You can share that link with them and they can look for themselves and they can sign themselves up to register for new projects. But what I would say to them is I'm going to be focusing on the ones that are going to be cooperating with outside people. Right? So you're going to have to streamline which ones are cooperating so that you get paid. Otherwise you won't get paid. You'll just be doing it out of the kindness of your heart.
Right.
And I've done that too. Honestly, like there's times where I'm like, okay, I know that I'm not going to get paid, but like, I'm just going to send this one to them because I know it fits what they want. So you choose how you want to handle that. Yeah. But
definitely. But it's by phone call. So we're kind of just researching, reaching out. Okay.
The other thing, remember too, the sales site might have their own platinum access. So you could get access to platinum launches when they launch just for realtors. I've purchased my own pre-construction before in the past. I've purchased 3 properties pre-construction and I was buying them for myself. So one time they did offer a reimbursement of a commission and then I just applied it to my sale price. But basically you'll want to know that they're cooperating with you. And if they are cooperating, who's the best person for you to put your clients in touch with? And please, guys, make sure that you're getting them to sign a referral agreement if you're sending them to them, okay? If you're not gonna do the deal and you're sending them to an agent that's working to put the deal together, you're passing them on, you don't get anything unless there's something on paper. There's a lot of agents in our office that have been burned by this. So they'll say, hey, Daniel, can you represent my clients? I'm introducing them to you via email. You're going to CC your client. Now you have the agent from the sales center. Now they have your client and they're going to put an offer in and they're going to pick the suite and the deal is done. There's nothing on paper that Nicole sent them to us. We didn't agree on a commission. We didn't agree on a referral fee. Ask ahead. Call the office, see what they can do for you. I have clients. I'm showing them both resale and pre-construction. They really like your site. Can you tell me, are you guys cooperating with other agents? You can even email them. My first question is always, are you cooperating? And the second thing is, can I get a price list and 4 plans? Right.
But be prepared if you email that. Most of them aren't emailing back. That's been my experience for the last couple of weeks. I've been emailing them and I don't get a response at all. I think calling the sales office is probably, I mean, I think
yeah, they probably aren't cooperating, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that aren't cooperating.
Yeah, they don't even respond.
We are also getting access to pre-construction launches. This is very new. We never had this before, but Gary's putting together pre-construction launches for sites that we've been invited to sell VIP for. And that right now, it's not completely full. Like right now we're seeing condos come on that, but I expect over the next little while, you might start seeing projects come like in Newmarket, some of the condo stacked towns that from Andrew Homes, you're going to see a lot more pre-construction in our areas that we have offices in. And once we start getting access to those, you know, for sure you're getting paid likely more than on a resale property. It just takes a little bit longer to get paid, right? But Gary's actually setting up a really good pre-construction launch for our agents to have exclusive access to. There's already a few projects on there right now, but they're for condos in the city. So I don't know if anybody has clients for that, maybe for yourself. Sarah, that would be good for you.
Steph, I actually have a question as well, if that's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
So something I've come across, because I'm doing a lot of cold calling, but in
Mhm.
terms of like the buying side, a lot of people are willing to sell, but they're really afraid of the lack of inventory and whether they can find a
Course.
house. So like
Sure.
how, I know it was talked about in a webinar in the last week, but how would I
Yeah.
go about that?
Sure. I know. Of course, they're going to be worried, right? I would be freaking scared. I would not be like personally selling if I didn't have somewhere to go in this market. And that's just,
Yeah.
that's no script involved. I'm not reading, like, that's me telling you this stuff. Okay. But you have to give them the solution
Mm.
so that they can make a decision. And there's a few solutions to their problem, right? That's what we're here to make, give them some options. The first thing is they can go out and buy property first before they sell. And there's going to be risk in every solution. Okay, so they can go and buy a property before they sell. Remind them that they need to have a deposit ready. Okay.
Mhm.
Some people forget about that part. When you're preparing an offer, and if their offer is accepted, they have to have some sort of a deposit, which is usually 5% of the purchase price, ready to go. I would also say to them, if you are purchasing a home, maybe you're asking for a 90-day close to give you time to list your house for sale. Right? I know you're writing, so I don't want to go
Yeah,
back.
sorry, I'm listening and I'm typing at the same time.
Yep.
90-day close.
Why do we say 90? Because you know what, guys, honestly, if they're going to list their house after they get this offer accepted, they're probably going to list next week. Make sure that they're ready to list. We're not just going to go buy a house they're not ready to list. Like if they have major renos to do, you got to do all that crap first, right? But be ready to list if you find the place you love, right? Then the following week, once their offer is accepted, you list their house for sale. Their house is likely going to sell in 7 days. 1 week, we're seeing average, sometimes less. And we're going to, at that point, likely we're going to want to try to match the closing dates or take possession of the new house sooner so they can move. They might have to bridge financing for that short period of time, but we're going to try to match the closing dates so that they work. Now they have a house that they love. They've put a deposit of 5% down. They've sold their home and they know when they're moving. That's an ideal scenario. Okay. Most scenario of what people are using right now. The second option is they list their house for sale. It sells. They know how much they have in the bank now, and they rent until they find a house. Ideal scenario? Not really, right? Because they might be priced out of the market, or they might not be. Who knows? We don't really know what the market's going to look like in 6 months from now. Maybe we get an influx of inventory and the prices come and become moderate, right? Maybe interest rates go up and the prices moderate. Like it's a risk both ways. They have to be comfortable with whatever they choose, right? So they might want to rent and then take their time looking. The third option, sometimes I find where people will say, we might do a short Airbnb. We might just do like a short Airbnb process in between. We might go stay with family for a year. We don't even know if we're staying in the country. We might be looking overseas. Maybe they're buying pre-construction, right? But they need the money to access it today to buy the pre-construction. So it needs to close in order for them to have the funds available to purchase again, right? So maybe they stay with family until they find the project that they want to be in. So once we've given them 3 options, we're showing them, we're not going to tell them which one's best for them. They know, but we're going to give them an option. They're going to have to make a choice as to how they want to approach it. I personally would choose option A, but that's because I have 2 small kids and I need to go somewhere right away. I don't have an option to fall back on. I don't have anywhere to lease. My family can't take me in, and there's really nothing out there that I love pre-construction. I want to go find the house that I love first and put a little deposit down and do a longer close.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, hun. Let me see if there's anybody else that has a question. Hi, Michael. How are you? Michael Connors. How's it going? Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
How are you doing? How did you find today's material?
Today was very good. There was a lot of questions answered on, how to deal with buyers. I really thought it was good.
Do you have any questions? Are you working with buyers right now, Mike?
I'm not currently working with any buyers, but I do have some coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be you know what? And I would even say like with these buyers, like it's tough because they might not win their first offer, right? They might
Yes.
likely not win their first offer. And so I would just use it as a learning experience and keep the momentum up with them in this type of market.
Definitely.
And you know what, guys, I think the other thing too is reminding ourselves not to be emotional in this process, because it can be exhausting to work in a market that is dominated by sellers. And so we have to remember that we need to keep the emotion out because we have to support them. This is a very stressful process for a lot of people. When they win the house, it's exciting and their emotions go up and they're so happy, but throughout searching, not everybody loves the process of searching for their next house. So really keeping our own emotions in check. And I actually had somebody just message me say, the one thing that we really liked about working with our realtor is that she kept us calm in a market that is frenzy and chaotic, right? Even though there's stuff going on in the background, not everything do we need to tell them about, right? We have to pick and choose what we're telling our buyers. If there's something that can be fixed, let's come up with a solution, right? So it's keeping them calm through the process. There was another person that just responded. They said, okay, so I had somebody say we were working with a realtor who primarily does luxury real estate and she sold our condo. She made us feel like our condo sale was irrelevant, right? And so I could see that happening, right? I could see guys, like not all agents get access to what we have here, like what we're building right now, right? Some people look at it like with commission breath and they don't care for the repeat business, like what we're talking about right now, right? So can you believe that you're selling your house with a luxury agent and that agent makes you feel like, they're not available, like your place is like, yeah, it's easy. It's like, yeah, just sell it. But you still have to pay them. It wasn't free. So this is all feedback from, and you can even do this with your own people, guys. You can ask them, like, if you're on social media or if you're talking to them over the phone, like, what was your experience like? I'm learning. I'm still asking for people. I'm asking for people because I always want to improve. I always want to do better. I'm still asking. And I'm here in front of you talking about buyers, right? I'm still asking, how can I do better? I don't want to do what that person did. Like that was so shitty, right? There's always room for us to do better. We'll always be students learning in this process. And that's totally okay. We have to remember when our ego kind of kicks in, that bring it right back down and come back from service, right? So when you come from core and service, everything I talked about today about, having systems and models, yes, that keeps us in check. But when you're working with a buyer at the end of the day, we know it's an emotional process and you're working with people. You're not working with robots, working with the people. Be of service for the people. Maybe the way you do things, the systematic way you're doing things might not work for this family because of their hours, because they're busy. Reevaluate, use the tools you have, just tweak them a little bit, right? So that's my experience on it. Does anybody else have anything else that they wanted to comment on? Any questions? Anything I can help you with specifically with what you're working on?
I do have a question, but not sure it's relevant.
Hi, Bella. Yes,
Hi.
go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if RICO has any restriction on rewarding or paying commission for referrals. Like
like a clause or something?
Well, I know someone that has a big database, and I'm sure he's not going to just pass it to me for free. And if he's going to promote me among his database, obviously he's asking for something. But I remember I read something on RICO website that I believe we are not allowed to pay any referral for getting client from someone. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you're right. So you can't, like if it's a mortgage broker, you can't accept a referral. But if it's another agent and they're going to be referring you business, you can create an agreement with them, of course, to be able to refer you for 25% or whatever you agree on, 50-50.
Yeah, but he's not agent, he's not in real estate business.
Yeah, then we can accept a referral.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else?
Great. I'm a little bit confused on that.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, I think you just said you can't accept a referral, but what you're saying is you can't pay
You got it.
someone for a referral.
That's right. Yeah.
Obviously, we can take referrals, but we can't offer compensation
You
to
got
a
it.
non-agent.
Yes.
'Cause that's another deal.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because that was something I had wondered about as well.
Mhm.
I just
And
wasn't sure
you're
about that.
right, Bella. I think you read that on Rico's site. It was definitely for sure on Rico's site. It's basically because we can't entice somebody to want to send us business for money, really, right?
Yeah.
If you choose to gift them with something, I would talk to Christine about it first and say, hey, look, like, this person has been sending me business. I'd like to show them some sort of an appreciation. Ask Christine how she would go about doing that. But I would basically say, like, at the end of the day, it comes down to making sure that the clients that they're giving you are being serviced, right? So if you're giving them service and you're doing a really good job, they're going to want to continue to refer you business, right?
Yes, but I was talking about the database of that person. Because I was thinking to get help from him to promote me among that number of people that he knows. But I believe, well, I'm quite sure that he's not going to do that for free.
And I mean, that's the other thing too. So maybe you're paying for the promotional piece, like, how we pay for billboards and how we're paying for platforms to advertise on. If he has a business set up where he's charging to advertise people, maybe he can bill you for it. And then you can pay him a fee to use his service to advertise for you. That's different, because us as realtors, we're always paying for advertising in different ways, right? We could be paying it at the bowling alley. You see it at the bowling alley, you see it in the newspaper, you see it everywhere, right? Where we're paying to be advertised. So it depends on, I guess, the wording of it and how he's charging you, and is he billing you, and then are you paying him for it?
Okay, that could be a solution.
That could be it too, right? Is there anybody else with a question? I think we went through a lot today, guys. We went through a bit of a role play. We did, what else did we do? We did so much. We talked about the entire questionnaire in terms of how we qualify buyers. There's a lot here that we did. We talked about how we convert buyers and how we use our buyer representation agreement and when we use that, and how we protect ourselves and our time and in our business. We talked about, working through command and adding people to some sort of a drip when you do receive a lead, what that looks like and how you're working them to cultivate them, to turn them into a client. And of course, like I said in the beginning, guys, we know that this will be different for each of you, depending on if you're a solo agent, where you're getting your leads from, or if you're on a team, how you're receiving leads and how you're working them. Like I said, 75% of the business that's being converted are coming from buyers. And so if we know that our database and our sphere of influence is huge right now, more than anything else. So when you're doing your 10-4s, make sure that you're developing those relationships from the people that you already know who are going to want to work with you. If they're not looking to buy right now, maybe they have a friend or a family member that is looking to be represented by one of the best people, because that's you, right? You want to show up that you're the best person for them and for anybody else that they know, right? There's a question here. Yes, she's used form 641 for referrals. Yeah. Perfect. Let me see. Somebody's jumped on here. It's Mr. Wayne. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Steph. Sorry I missed your call. I was in the dentist chair getting my teeth.
Well, your teeth look nice and clean. So thank gosh you came up showing gleamy.
I take it whatever question you had, you resolved.
Yeah, no, we're all good. I was able to get on the phone with Dylan, but Yeah, so basically, Wayne, we're just almost wrapping up here. It's 2:40. I'm gonna go ask a roundtable again, but we had a really good power session today. As we know, working with buyers is basically dominant in our business. Most agents are working with a lot of buyers, right? Because there's not a lot of inventory to sell if we're not at the doors trying to get the business. And so as a result, most of us are working with a lot of buyers. And so what does that look like, and how we're qualifying them, and how do we keep them engaged, guys? That's key. They might not be business today, like I said, but like I said, I have one person I put in my database 4 years ago through an open house on a builder site that I'm still talking to, and she's referred me other friends from Aurora that are looking, but not herself just yet. So we can't forget about that C category that I talked to you guys about earlier. That C category, remember, can be an A category ready to go right now. In like 6 months, their lives can change. And we found that a lot, remember, through the pandemic, as well as people's lives quickly had to change because as a result of having to work from home, now their kids are home, they need more space. They thought they were going to stay in their house for 5 years, but the reality was no, they needed to move now, right? And so it's just remembering that, touching base with people who you think are on the back burner that are actually probably business for now. We just don't know because we haven't touched base with them, right?
I think there's a stat out there that most people that are buying or selling a home right now didn't know they were going to be buying or selling that home 90 days ago. Because there's a major life event that happens every 90 days that somehow can reshape somebody's life. So that's why you got to call them every quarter, right, Steph?
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, that's what we talked about, like having them on the right, basically right drip campaign to remind yourself too, because how many times, like when you get to a database that has 2, 3, 4, maybe 1,000 people, to remember those categories is challenging for us. And we forget the business that we weren't there for today, that somebody else picked up. How many times has it been where you've called that lead and you're like, hey, are you guys thinking of making a move this year? And they're like, sorry, we already did. How pissed off would you be? I've had that happen. I'm pissed.
So am I.
I'm like, man, what the heck? Like I was the perfect agent for them. I know their family personally, they would have loved, but I wasn't the perfect timing for them. And that's what sucks, right?
Yep.
Okay, guys, any other comments or questions from anybody here in the group? Sarah, you're good, right? You got that down on your, okay, perfect. Paula, how are you doing? I kind of see you there.
I'm great, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just making my notes. So I got
okay, good.
You woke her up.
Great.
Yeah, Paula, how are you doing? I know that you went to preview a few properties too the other day. Was that with a buyer or just for yourself?
I went with myself, and then I did go with someone that is like, yes, a potential, client buyer, someone that's like a good friend of mine that is looking for a home, and I loved it. I had so much fun. I love
working with them.
Yes. Well, yes, that as well. But this week, like last week was the first week I started previewing homes, and I love it. So I learned a lot. And every time I see a home, I feel like I'm learning more and more and more about homes and just a lot of different things. So I had a great time.
That's really good. And so now today too, that I showed you in your toolkit where your buyer questionnaire is, right? Maybe we can streamline that process a little bit so that we can really find out what they're looking for. And if it wasn't that house that you went to go see, now we can go back to your toolkit to say, okay, next time, now before I go and see a property with them, and even if it's for yourself, it's different, but if you're going to see something with them, you can kind of streamline that process right from the beginning. So that we can really get concrete about, are they qualified and ready to go, or are they just people that are just looking and are ready to buy now, right?
Yeah. Got it.
And a great way to figure out if they're really qualified is to ask them for their lender's information.
That's what we talked about today too. We talked about previewing and how do we read lender approvals.
Yeah.
Right.
Just say, hey, I'd like to, we're a team here and I'd love to reach out to your lender and introduce myself. And so that we're all on the same page. And if they go, I did it online or I did it, that's when you all stop. You go, okay, hold on. If we're serious about this, we need to get serious about getting pre-approved as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
the other thing too, Wayne, that I was talking about was I had a situation come up where I had a client tell me that they were approved for 600,000. Okay. So I say, I'm approved for 600,000. What does 600,000 mean? They didn't realize that there was a difference between pre-approved for a mortgage for 600,000 or pre-approved for a total purchase price of 600,000.
Right.
So we have to be so careful. That's why, guys, the first step when we were talking about today, introduce yourself, like Wayne said, to the broker. I don't care who it is at the bank that they're working with. Who are they? And do they have products lined up in case what they're looking at, they're not qualified for? Like, do they have other options if they need it? Can they access more money? In this market that we're working with, guys, it's really tough to work with first-time buyers if that's who you're focused on. Are there other options for them if in case their budget runs out? Like, I've had to go back to the bank with my clients to say, hey, that $800,000 approval that you gave me a couple months ago doesn't exist anymore. Like, can you help me? Is there other products that we can access? And then we start looking at other ways and breaking down the cost for them and letting them make the decision. Ultimately, like I said, we're here to bring the information to them. We're not here to decide for them. We bring all sorts of solutions, and then they have to pick what is the best solution for them. And some of it comes with risk, but there's risk in everything that we're doing. They have to really decide how much risk is good for them. My risk tolerance could be different from Stacey's, is different from Wayne's, is different from Jenna's. We can't assume that they're going to agree on one situation or another. Maybe they want to be lender. Maybe they're okay with a private mortgage. We can't assume that they just want traditional lending. So that's why we talked about right now, as we speak, guys, when you're making your calls, you need to be calling mortgage brokers, lenders, meeting people at the bank when you're going to do your deposits. If you're at the bank level, whatever that looks like, that was the first thing that I did when I was working with buyers. Was I really created good relationships with people who could lend my clients money, because we need money to buy real estate, right? So especially here. I think we're good here, guys, unless there's anybody else that has something.
Thank you, Stephanie. You are a rock star.
Thanks,
Thank you
Wayne,
for
for
taking
having
the
me. This was
time.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much. This
Leslie.
was so
Thanks,
helpful.
guys. So Wayne, do I
Thanks very
just
much.
end the recording and then?
You can click stop recording and then you can end the Zoom call.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you for your
Take
time,
care.
Steph.
Thank you.
Really
Bye.
appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.